Salam and Jambo. Welcome to the Baraza Banter podcast, episode 2. This episode, we're going to be talking about Muslim representation in the media. Grab a cup of tea and maybe even some mandazi and join us on our journey as we change the world one cup at a time.
Okay, so first off, we'd like to thank you all for all the wonderful and positive responses we've received from our last episode. It's truly been so overwhelming.
Yeah, I think we have to highlight a few amazing comments that we received, especially from the blooper reel. We talked about a few of the snacks that we used to sneak into mosque, at least Fariha and Zahra did. I was always a diet chocolate.
Really?
Yeah.
You had dealers for that.
All right. So, one of the comments that we received, we were talking about the snacks that we'd sneak in, and someone said, miss those days incredibly. I think mine was choki only because it was tiny and it would fit in any of my small bags and wouldn't make noise. I completely agree. Oh my God.
That's actually so smart. I wish I would have thought of that when I was back in mosque.
I know. And then she said, got saved with the scolding of the aunties. Wow, she was smart. I went for it. Like, I just took my pack of chips.
Yeah, me too, man.
I used to make sure that I crush it I crush it well, so it's like, the chips is now into small
you
pieces.
You used to crush it? What's the point of having crushed chips?
Listen, there's a whole story, there's a whole process that goes behind it. The smaller the pieces, the longer it lasts. So it used to last me the whole majlis, instead of just finishing
God.
And then me looking around at other people eating chips, This is me when I was approximately, let's say 9, 10. So just
No, she's lying.
If you think I still do that, I do not do that now.
She's just feeling embarrassed.
Moving on.
Okay, so another message we received was so lovely. She said, I just got around to listening to your podcast and I was like, oh my God, yes, the whole time. I missed mosque so much and I'm looking forward to more episodes. I remember complaining that there was mosque at night sometimes, especially after a long day, but now I'm like, give me mosque. And honestly,
Aww.
I can't relate more.
Same. I don't think anyone would say that they don't miss mosque at this point.
Okay, so the third comment we'd like to highlight was all in caps. She was like, love the episode, ! Oh my God, I miss madrasa so much too. Still remember madrasa days, plus the teachers were amazing, ! I'm glad that we're not the only people that miss madrasa.
Oh yeah, definitely. So speaking about Muslim representation today, I'd like to ask our hosts and our listeners a question, and that is, why are you a Muslim?
I think it's a mix of things. So nature and nurture comes into play. We were born Muslim and brought up Muslim in a Muslim household. And then sort of like through our years, we learned about our religion, why we follow it, why it's something that's so important to us. It became more of a lifestyle. And then later on also we had our own opinions on it too, right? So now we have a choice of whether we want to keep following the same religion that our parents taught us or follow something else.
Right. So it's your choice basically, right?
Yeah.
All right. So because, in fact, it's many people when asked this question, they say that, well, we are just Muslims because we were born as Muslims. And they don't really know why they do follow the religion that they follow right now. But I definitely agree with the fact that it's both, as in, yes, you are born into a Muslim household, alhamdulillah, and it also should be a current choice, because if it's not your own choice, you'll always be doing things for other people and never really for yourself or for your Lord.
Yeah, so I feel like this journey as a Muslim is represented really well in this book called Does My Head Look Big in This by Randa Abdul Fattah.
Wow.
And Zahra, I'm so glad that you brought up that book. It's honestly one of my favorites. When I started reading it, I could not put it down. And when I say I could not put it down, Zahra can vouch for that. She remembers when I was reading it, I honestly could not stop reading.
What does it talk about? I've never read the book.
So it explores the journey of this Australian Muslim and her relationship with her hijab in a Western country, right? And the struggles that she went through, the responses that she got from the people around her, and I think it's a really good representation of that struggle that we go through with, not just with our hijab, but with our religion as a whole. Like it shows it more as a journey instead of getting it right from the get-go. And it's a very humorous exploration of that too.
Yeah, so I'm actually holding the book in my hand right now, and I have a really good quote from it. So she's having this conversation with an Islamophobic teacher, and she says, I feel like my head is permanently stuck in an oven. Every time something happens in the world and the politicians start barking out about Islamic terrorists and the journalists start their flashing headlines, it's as though they're turning up the oven heat dial. My head starts to roast and burn, and I need air, coolness, something to keep me from exploding.
That just reminded me how much I love that book. I want to read it all over again.
Hey Zahra, do you have like the physical copy of the book?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay, I'd love to borrow it sometime.
Yes, we convinced her.
All right.
And we convinced all of you listeners as well. So definitely get your hand on this book.
Yes, definitely. So worth it.
Speaking of which, actually, there's another book that I came across that's called All American Muslim Girl by Nadine Julie. So I've noticed that mostly whenever a Muslim character is presented or portrayed in movies or shows or books, as an example, the people around them basically negatively influence the Muslim character. So as an example, they discourage the character from continuing to wear her hijab. Or in fact, in that matter, for a man to maintain his hijab, because we need to remember that both women and men have their hijab, their own hijab in Islam. So they're not really encouraged to keep that hijab on and are actually encouraged to remove it. But in this book, one of the main characters, who is a Muslim, has a friends group that encourages her to follow her religion, to keep her hijab on, to basically be a good Muslim. And that presents a beautiful image of a Muslim girl to the media. And as the book suggests as well, it's an all-American Muslim girl. So it presents a beautiful image of a Muslim girl in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that also highlights how important it is to have that peer group that can support you on your journey, right?
Yeah, so I couldn't go any longer without mentioning this book called Surviving Zahra.
How have I not read any of these books?
Yes, Surviving Zahra. Oh my God.
You need to get on to reading this book. It has specific cultural representation, and I think it's just one of my favorite books of all time. So I couldn't move on without mentioning it.
Mine too. So good.
Yeah. So this book does not only touch upon hijab, as in the physical hijab, but also hijab when it comes to your surroundings and your actions and how you present yourself in front of non-mahrams and in society in general. And I think since hijab is so much more than just a scarf that you wear on your head, that really represents it in a positive manner.
Sometimes we put that under the rug, right? We just focus on the physical aspect of hijab. Not necessarily like most of the media is about the physical part of it and the physical struggle. But at the same time, it's a lot more than that. And like Zahra said, this book, Surviving Zahra, is amazing. Everybody needs to read this book.
Many a times hijab is always referred to like, oh, a woman should maintain her hijab, or a woman is the person that's supposed to, be a hijabi woman. But we don't look at the hijab of a man. And if we are talking about Muslim representation in the media, or in general, the man also has a responsibility to maintain his hijab, and the rules and regulations of these have been mentioned everywhere in Quranic ayahs and ahadith. So it's not like, there's an excuse that no, we don't really have enough materials or resources to refer back to for a man to truly maintain his hijab. And if we are talking about Muslim representation of men and women in the media, I think Zahra, you had a few examples of I think an actor, was it Rami that you were referring to?
There's actually a show that he has made based on his own personal story, being a Muslim American Egyptian in the USA. And so I think this might be a little controversial, but personally I did watch the show. I watched a couple of episodes, but I couldn't bear to watch more because it had, a, although it was his own story, I think it had a negative representation of Muslim men and how usually in sort of Middle Eastern and Asian cultures we tend to brush men's hijab aside, and I think that's something that should be definitely addressed.
I think that like just it's so ironic because the Quran first says the men need to lower their gaze and then the women put on their hijab.
Nice.
So we sort of just we skipped the men and we just prioritized the women, right? So I feel like that's something that really needs to be brought attention to.
Yeah, as in I know ladies first, but like that doesn't mean
not in all aspects.
Speaking of Muslim representation in TV shows, I came across this movie. I think it was called Hala. And it's about this Pakistani girl that has her hijab on, and she faces a really tough time. She's got a really strict family. So she's surrounded by strict parents and a strict society as well. And does anyone want to guess what happens towards the end? Maybe like a wild guess.
She removes her hijab.
Of course she does. And who for? A white boy.
Yep, there we go.
We totally didn't see it coming.
Yeah, not at all.
So adding on to that, there's another TV show called Elite. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. It's pretty famous on Netflix. And it also involves...
Wait. Is it about a girl? Is it about a group of high school students?
I thought you were gonna say, is it about a girl who takes off her hijab for a white boy?
Is it? Is it? No, I don't think it is. No.
Well, considering that's pretty much all the representation we get in the mass media, it of course has to be based on a girl who is forced to take off her hijab.
There we go.
And so she's forced to take off her hijab because of her school, and eventually she ends up taking it off in personal situations as well. And obviously there's a white boy involved. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, I think there's just so much negative representation that people start to actually believe that, and that's just couldn't be further from the truth. Here's my media studies A-level coming into hand, but there's a theory called the cultivation theory, which suggests that people who are regularly exposed to a certain type of media for a long period of time, they are more likely to perceive the world's social realities as they are presented in that media that they consume. So, which obviously in turn affects their attitudes and their behavior.
Okay, before I mention my point, I wanted to ask you guys, what is your favorite genre of TV shows?
Okay, it's difficult to choose, to be honest, because there's like different shows for different times. You get me? Like there is maybe a time when I'm like, okay, I'm watching New Amsterdam and I'm enjoying that so much, and then there's times when like you just want to sit and watch something more chill.
Yeah, I feel like if I had to pick out, it would definitely be drama for me.
Always dramas, always. I'd say one of the genres I'd pick would also be comedy, definitely.
Yeah, because she's the clown of the show.
How many names have you already given me? Anyways, okay, so you were about to mention?
My favorite genre would definitely be a crime shows. I love myself a good crime show, especially with those like twists and turns and like.
If the comedy genre describes my character and dramatic genre describes Zahra's character, then should we be concerned if it's a crime?
Okay, I don't think it describes my character, but I love a good crime show. But then the sad part is that a lot of crime shows, when it comes to talking about the Middle East, it's always a negative representation. We're always like the leaders of aggression, the terrorists that come into play. Like, for example, Homeland or Madame Secretary, the first season was really, really good. And it was showing how to deal with international relations in a positive way rather than the way that I guess America deals with it. And it was through a woman in power. So it was really, really cool. It was like a different perspective on politics, and I really enjoyed it. But then the second season started focusing so much on the Middle East that I was like, yeah, I'm out of here, right? And can you imagine, like, if this is what, like, Homeland is such a popular crime show, and if many Americans are watching, or many people are watching that show, that's what they think Muslims are, right? The terrorists. And then it feeds into like the news and the media that like just reiterates that fact again. And that causes like a spiral effect of like watching aggression and acting out aggression. For example, the Bobo doll study by Albert Bandura. Have you guys heard of that?
Oh yeah, I remember studying that in I think was it the GCSE years, Zahra?
Yeah, psychology.
Yeah,
So
psychology.
Yeah.
yeah, so that highlighted that children who watched aggression being modeled responded more aggressively. And that's how hate crimes are caused, because people watch these crime shows and they're told that who the enemy is. Clearly, it's the Middle East and Muslims. And these social behaviors are learned, right? Like they get enraged by it, believe that all Muslims are aggressive, and then they go out and commit hate crimes.
And especially I've noticed, like as an example, if there's someone who's never met a Muslim before, and then if this is what they see, um, they're automatically, the first impression is going to be the last impression. Yeah, I guess it's like a mirror, right? What you become, what you see eventually over time. Like the hadith also said that you are what you eat, so you also become what you see over time. And this actually reminds me of I think, yeah, we learned this in sociology, that the media is one of the secondary socializing agents for a child, or for anyone in that matter. And we learn so much from it indirectly. We don't really notice, but we do learn so much from it, and we become what we watch over time. So that's really important for us to take that into account. One question that came to mind to come up with a solution that is more practical is that, okay, nowadays we can see all of this happening in the media, there is negative Muslim representation out there. What can we as individuals do about this? Like, let's say after listening to this podcast, our listeners, what could they do about it? How could we stop this cycle? Any ideas?
I think the main thing we can do is take the narrative in our own hands, especially like through social media and educating others. A lot of people live in their own bubbles and they don't even realize, I guess they have that privilege of living in their own bubble, so they don't need to know these things. Like, for example, one of my friends, she lived in like a small town far away from the city, and I was actually the first person that she met that was a Muslim. And when she told me that,
Wow.
I was so
No
shocked.
pressure at all.
Yeah, I was so shocked that I was the first Muslim that she met. And that was like a lot of pressure, because obviously she had questions.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think, interacting with these type of people, like other cultures, and being open to their curiosity, even though it can be annoying at times. Like, for example, the classic even water in Ramadan question.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've lost count of how many times I've been asked that. Even the do you shower in that? Like when people ask you, oh, do you actually even sleep or shower in the hijab? Don't even get me started. There was actually an ad. I think it was, it a Malaysian ad, if I'm not mistaken, of this lady. There was a shampoo that was introduced, I think, to shower with a hijab on. And then everyone was making fun of that. I think, did none of you see that meme?
Oh my God, I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So speaking of social media and reclaiming the narrative, I've seen a lot of really good Muslims on social media recently that have been posting about their stories on YouTube, even on TikTok, on Instagram. Like, I can mention so many. I mean, we know Jasmine and Dawood on YouTube. They're hilarious. I love their videos so much.
I'm not showing off, but I'm actually gonna go meet her today. She replied to my story on Instagram, and like
Wow.
we're besties now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Anyways.
no need to go there.
I even told her about this podcast, and she gives her regards that she couldn't be able to make it.
Oh, inshallah, one day.
One day. But Charles, she was really busy. What can we do?
Yeah, so other than Jasmine and Dawood, we know so many others like Zahra Ribeiro, some people of our own like Sakina Rajabali on Instagram. Her Instagram is so aesthetic. Can we talk about that?
It's gold.
Yes, travel goals.
Yeah, I mean, she really reclaims the narrative by destigmatizing traveling alone as a woman and exploring the world, which I love.
Agreed, 100%. I'd love to take some tips from her, actually.
Yeah, and her food photography. Oh my God. Whenever I see the food,
oh my God.
I start craving. Like my mouth starts watering.
That's when you know it's a good picture. And I think we have others as well. Like we've got Hassan Minaj.
Yes.
We've got Ali Official.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And Ruwaida Abdulaziz as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing Muslim comedians nowadays. I mean, can we talk about Hassan Minhaj for a second? Like, he has really changed the perspective of American Muslims.
Yeah, I don't think a second will do it justice. I think we'd have to show our listeners what we mean.
Okay, so to give you a little bit of context for this clip that you're about to hear, Hassan Minhaj is basically speaking about his experience at the Democratic National Committee rally when Hillary Clinton was running for president. And the person he is referring to is Bill Clinton speaking to the Muslim community.
Then I remember he's like, Muslims, yeah, you guys are here, Muslim Americans, hey, stay here. Stay here. Help us find the terrorists, help us win. And everyone around me, like at all of those, they started full-on applause break. They were like, yeah, I'm with her shirts, yes, help us win. And I remember standing there and being like, Bill, I hate to tell you this, I don't know any terrorists. I'm not Terrorist the Bounty Hunter. Like, I'm not just like Bill Clinton, like, and I come out like he's just not gonna get it. I'm an alien as far as he will never understand where I'm coming from, my POV, the things my community have had to go through. We have to claim that on our terms. So I just started working on the show Patriot Act, and I was just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show my perspective of what it's like to be an American.
It's interesting because he also mentions at the end that the reason that he started the Patriot Act was so that he could take the narrative back into his own hand, right? From what he'd seen in rallies and conventions, and he knew that he needed to do something to change that narrative. And it's such a popular show. I'm so glad that he decided to do that because...
Yeah, he was actually, we were talking about it as well, and I gave him some ideas, and alhamdulillah, he is where he is now with my duas.
Really?
Yeah. You think you only meet with Jasmine and talk to her?
Okay, so what's our takeaway from this? So I definitely agree that we should start reclaiming the narrative back into our own hands. But another thing we can do is just being more aware of the representation when we're watching entertainment, whether it be movies, books, TV shows.
Or TikToks as well.
Yeah, TikToks as well. We can't forget TikTok. But yeah, we should start being more intentional of the shows and movies that we're watching. And when we see bad Muslim representation, as Faliha said, we should definitely not support it, as well as speak up about it in whatever way possible, whether that be social media or in your own friend groups, whatever works for you.
Yeah, and I think it's also recognizing that our voice is important, and our voice, whether we think it's loud or small, we need to do whatever we can to get our voices out there. Like everybody's voice matters. And I think Ruwaida Abdulaziz said it best. She is an American journalist who works for the Huffington Post. And she said, everyone has power, whether it's in their social circle or dinner conversation or in the classroom. Recognize, where do I have the most privilege and the most power? And that's going to be the space that I can have this conversation.
Wow.
Preach, I love that.
This was your weekly dose of Baraza Banter.
We hope you enjoyed.
And until the next cup of tea, where we will be discussing veganism in Islam.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Stay tuned.
Peace.